You wouldn't think a dessert could improve your brain power or lower inflammation, but this one can. It's made with 3 anti-inflammatory foods backed by thousands of studies, and it still tastes delicious and indulgent. When people try it, they never guess the secret ingredient. Plus, you can whip it up in 15 minutes. So I'm a doctor and a nutritionist telling you to eat chocolate, but not the sugary types you find in most supermarkets. Today, chocolate has become this ultra sweet treat, but it starts life as cacao beans inside the cacao fruit. It's fermented, dried, roasted, and ground into this rich paste to make good quality chocolate. They contain fiber, protein, minerals like magnesium, and special plant chemicals called flavonols, which is why I'm such a fan of getting chocolate in this dessert. To start it off, we've got a small saucepan on low to medium heat, and I've got some boiling water, and we're going to create what's called a bain-marie. Now, a bain-marie is just a fancy way of melting your chocolate whilst keeping it lovely, luxurious, velvety smooth. If you were to put this in a microwave, it would cause the chocolate to clag, and we definitely don't want that. I'm using a special glass bowl, which is tempered so it won't shatter. You want to look out for this condensation at the bottom, and then if you touch the bottom, it should feel hot, but not crazy hot. 100 grams of chocolate. I'm going to put it in the bowl, and it's going to start to gently melt. You want to look for a high cocoa content, ideally above 80 to 85%. Minimal ingredients. It should just be cocoa and cocoa butter at the top of the list. No artificial flavors, emulsifiers, or oils like palm oil. And because it's so high in cocoa, it will automatically be low in sugar. If you're not used to having dark chocolate, you can eke your way up by going 50%, 60%, 70%. That way, you're sort of acclimatized to the higher amount of flavonols. And this is what gives dark chocolate its complex, bitter taste. In fact, the Latin name for the tree, Theobroma, even means food of the gods. And you know what? I believe them. Cacao has got so many good brain health benefits. In trials, it's been linked to sharper thinking, better focus, improved memory. Pretty cool. And that's partly because it helps blood flow to the brain by increasing something called nitric oxide. There's studies showing that chocolate can lower inflammation, lower oxidative stress, improve performance and recovery. This has been melting for about 5 minutes or so, and it's already looking glorious. This is the ingredient that surprises everyone, silken tofu. I know what you're thinking, disgusting, but trust me, you will not taste this in the dessert. And this ingredient is so good for you. Soy foods like tofu, tempeh, they've been part of traditional diets for thousands of years. They're a great source of plant-based protein, fiber, calcium, magnesium, manganese. Plus, they have these plant compounds called isoflavones that have anti-inflammatory effects. In fact, studies link soy foods to lower risk of heart disease, fewer menopausal symptoms, and even reduced risks of breast and prostate cancer. You've probably heard about the risks of tofu. I think it's one of the most misunderstood foods out there. Headlines linking tofu with cancer risk, estrogenizing effects, but those fears come from outdated animal studies that have been largely disproven in humans. What we know from over 40 trials is that eating whole soy foods, even every day, doesn't harm your hormones, impact fertility, or raise your risk. However, when it comes to any foods, it's important to choose the highest quality. The tofu I always use is organic, not ultra processed. And when I'm getting tofu from the shop, I look for simple ingredients: soybeans, water, and a coagulant. Now, tofu comes in lots of different varieties. It can get a little bit overwhelming if you've never used it before. There's extra firm, smoked tofu. We're using silken tofu today, which is great as a cream replacement for use in desserts because it's pretty bland and it takes on loads of flavor easily, and it gives you that moussey texture that we're looking for. This goes. I'm also going to use the water in this because that's just going to help everything bind together. Now, I'm also using raw cacao. This is something I love using. It's actually a really good protein replacement. It's got around 25 grams of protein per 100 grams. So if you're looking to add more protein to smoothies or desserts, it's a great way of doing that without having to rely on ultra processed protein powders. I even have this just with hot water, a little bit of honey and collagen as a replacement to my morning coffee. 2.5 tablespoons goes in here. I'm using maple syrup in this recipe because ultimately it is a dessert, but I'm not under any illusion that maple syrup is better than white sugar. It has a tiny amount of extra antioxidants in this, but I don't want you to think that you can use more of this because of that. Ultimately, it has the same biological effect in your body. I personally don't use that much. Ultimately, you're in control. That's too much. I personally don't use that much. That is too much. I personally don't use that much. Cut. Straight off the bain-marie, I'm pouring in the melted chocolate. All right, you ready for this? As you can see, the texture is super luxurious and moussey. I'm gonna pop these into champagne coupes. Decadent, indulgent. You can tell why people do not guess secret ingredient. Before the next ingredient, we need to chill these for around 45 minutes. This gives me a chance to clean down my kitchen, and in no time, my mousse is ready. I'm gonna add the third anti-inflammatory ingredient, extra virgin olive oil. Now, you might think it's a bit weird to add extra virgin olive oil to a dessert, but it's actually very Mediterranean. They add it to cakes, ice cream, and even pair it with dark chocolate. In fact, this is loosely based on a Spanish dessert where they do exactly that. Just a drizzle, which is about 7 grams a day, was linked to around a 28% lower risk of dying from dementia-related causes. But it's really important to get the best quality extra virgin olive oil you can buy. Cold pressed, stored in a dark glass bottle, ideally with an early harvest date because freshness really matters. And we're not just adding this for health benefits. That little hit of peppery, fruity flavor cuts through the richness of this chocolate and makes everything taste that little bit more balanced. A touch of salt will bring out that beautiful flavor. But this is just a base recipe. There are endless variations you can make with different toppings. One of my favorite toppings is an almond crumble. So easy to make. 50 grams ground almonds, 50 grams of raw cacao, pinch of salt, tablespoon of olive oil, tablespoon of honey. You want to just mix this together with the spoon, and then you'll notice it clumps together in small pieces, but you do need to get your hands involved. When you squeeze them together, it becomes like cookie crumble. And this is a great topper for all sorts of desserts, whether it's just fruit, Greek yogurt, or even the base of one of our tarts on the Doctor's Kitchen app. I'm really into figs right now. They offer fiber, and I decorate it with some flaked almonds. Or if you don't have any fresh fruit to hand, go for frozen berries. My go-to are frozen blackcurrants. They're super high in anthocyanins. And I'm garnishing this with finely chopped pistachio for that beautiful color and extra fiber hit. Have fun with it, and this is a great dessert to serve at dinner parties, and you can tell your guests you're looking after their health. And if you're thinking about upgrading your breakfast as well as your dessert, I'll show you my high protein breakfast right here.